Hello, today I'm going to teach you all about the 5 areas of development. There's a worksheet that goes along with this that's attached in the Schoology assignment. You can use it as I go through this and you can follow along and fill in the blanks, or you can wait until I'm done and you can fill it in at that time. I'm going to talk to you about the 5 areas of development today, but first I want to talk to you a little bit about why we are studying human development or child development. Human development is the process that lasts from prenatal development all the way until death. It lasts an entire lifespan, and growth and change happens more rapidly in the first 2 years of life than any other stage of development. So that first 2 years of child development is crucial in creating a healthy child and making sure that they're developing the best they can. And it happens very quickly in those 2 years, and then it's more gradual as you go on. So for example, if you look at a newborn baby and you compare them to a 2-year-old, it's drastic compared to what can they do, what do they look like. It's very different. Whereas you look at your 5th grade picture and compare it to your 6th grade picture, it's much more gradual. There aren't as many changes that happen in those later years. Why is it important to study human development? It helps us to better understand ourselves and understand what we're going through. And it also helps us to understand people around us who may be at a different stage than you're at. It also helps you prepare maybe to be a good babysitter. It might help you eventually prepare to be a parent long time down the road from now. If you choose a career that requires you to have an understanding of human development or child development, like anything in the healthcare field, like nurse, doctor, physical therapist, dentist, any type of education or teaching, counselors. There's a lot of different careers that need to have an understanding of human development, or even just to understand your siblings and cousins. This last one just says that it helps us to relate to other people at different stages. Many of you probably have siblings that are in a different stage of development than you are. And sometimes you might not understand why they're doing certain things or why they say certain things, or you might find certain behaviors annoying that they do. But a lot of that just has to do with the stage that they're in. And so understanding child development and human development allows us to maybe be more compassionate people and understanding of those who are in a different stage. So the first area of development we're going to talk about is physical development. I want you to think for a minute, what do you think physical development has to do with? When I think of physical, I think of physical appearance or maybe physical activity. It does include both of those things. So it includes physical changes in your appearance. It also has to do with physical strength, so like getting stronger and gaining muscle and your ability to do things because of that. And it has to do with coordination, and becoming more coordinated at doing different types of activities. We're going to talk a little bit about large and small motor skills. So large and small motor skills are also sometimes called gross and fine motor skills, and it has to do with movements that we do. So large motor skills or gross motor skills have to do with movements that we do that involve using large muscles in our body. So like our arm muscles, our leg muscles, maybe our core abdominal muscles. And think briefly, what are some of the things you use those large muscles for? Here's some of them: walking, running, swimming, lifting, jumping. So if large motor skills have to do with using large muscles, what do you think small motor skills are? Small motor skills involve using smaller body parts, like our hands and our fingers. So what are some of the things that you use your hands and fingers for? Maybe writing, maybe playing an instrument, if you play the flute or the clarinet. Maybe using tools like holding a nail and using a hammer. Maybe painting your fingernails. There's lots of smaller movements that we do with our fingers and hands. As a 1-year-old, a really big small motor skill task that they try to do is picking something up with your finger and thumb. Maybe a Cheerio, something very small, being able to pick that up between your finger and thumb. So these are some examples of large and small motor skills. Something else I want you to think about is changes in appearance. So a newborn baby maybe have no teeth, and as they get older, they grow teeth. Maybe it has to do with hair growth or just, getting stronger, building more muscle. Coordination, I always think about, like, if you throw a 2-year-old a ball, usually their response time to catch the ball is a little delayed because they're still kind of understanding that hand-eye coordination. As you get a little older, you develop those skills and those tasks get easier. The next area of development we're going to talk about is intellectual development. When I think of intellectual, I think of what's in your head, your intellect, smarts. So it has to do with your ability to understand and comprehend new material, or maybe using previous material to build on what you're learning now. It involves your ability to think and reason. It also has to do with our ability to communicate. So learning and understanding language has to do with intellectual development. Babies learn and develop through using their senses. So I always use the example of a ball. If a baby sees a ball and they hear you saying the word ball, and they can see your mouth moving saying the word ball, and then they can touch the ball, they might try to put the ball in their mouth because babies put everything in their mouth. They're using all of their senses to explore the world around them, and eventually they can say the word ball. So it's taking all of the information that they've gathered through their senses and then putting it into words. Now they can say ball, or maybe it's dog. Through repetition, that's how babies and everybody learns, right? Like if you're learning foreign language this year, you're going to practice. You're going to hear the words. You're going to hear Senora Gregro talking about the words. You might practice them on Quizlet or with flashcards. And so through repetition, you learn those words. Emotional development is the next area. What do you think about when you think of emotional development? I think of feelings. How do we express our feelings and our emotions? Babies have a limited way of expressing how they're feeling. I bet you can guess the one way they can express it. It's by crying. Babies cry all the time for whatever they need because it's their only way of letting their caregiver know what they need or that they need something. And it's up to us to figure out what it is. Maybe they're hungry. Maybe they have a wet diaper. Maybe they're overtired. Maybe they just want somebody to hold them. So there's a lot of different things that we can learn when a baby is crying, and we need to be able to address those needs. Sometimes they might smile when they're happy. Around 3 months, babies start smiling and like giggling and smiling responsively. So that's an exciting time for their emotional development when they can start smiling in response to something that you did. As you get older, you learn to express your emotions in a more complex way. So, let's just say there's a group of people who are all frustrated. Everybody might express their frustration differently. One person might just shut right down and not say anything and keep it all inside. Somebody else might be very vocal about how they're feeling, expressing their frustration and kind of talking through it. Somebody else might storm off and slam the door and go in their room. So a lot of people have different ways of expressing how they feel under different circumstances. And as you get older, we learn to express our feelings in socially acceptable ways. So for example, if you're frustrated, it might be acceptable to, voice your concern or say it out loud. It might be acceptable to kind of shut down and not say anything. Is it acceptable to punch the wall? Probably not. So you quickly learn that when you're not doing something that's socially acceptable, like punching a wall, there might be a consequence for that. So just something to think about. The next area of development is social development. So when I think of social development, I think of friends, socializing. So babies and children learn social skills and start developing them at a very early age. Infants, like newborns, crave face-to-face time. I don't mean FaceTime like on your iPad. I mean face-to-face interaction with other humans. It's important to hold your baby and talk to the baby and look at their face, and they can see your face. They crave that attention, and this is like how they start their early social skills. As they get a little older, they start to make friends and learn to share and learning to get along and kind of how to navigate, cooperating and playing with other children. And then as you get older, and even, as an adult, you learn more complex social skills. So you guys are learning to cooperate with others or negotiating. How many of you have tried to negotiate your bedtime with your parents before? Maybe staying up late because the Super Bowl's on or your favorite show is on or something like that. So it's also important to build relationships, and this has to do with social development. Middle school is crucial for building relationships. Early years, like grade school, I think kids have a tendency to make friends based on maybe who their parents are friends with. I know my kids, most of their social opportunities have to do with my friends and their kids. So they're kind of have all this whole group of friends by default because they're my friends' kids. As you get into middle school, you start to form peer groups based on your interests. Maybe you play a sport with them one season, or maybe you're in a club with them, or you are into the same things. And building relationships is something that develops over time. And many of the friendships that you build during middle school might end up being lifelong relationships. I know I have lifelong relationships that I made during middle school. The last area of development we're going to talk about is moral development. Morals. What does that have to do with? I always think of like the moral of the story. What was the lesson that you learned? Maybe learning to understand right from wrong. That's what we're talking about when we're talking about moral development. This doesn't just happen. It happens with guidance and redirection and repetition. It might be like, no, we don't hit. And then you repeat it again if they hit again. No, we don't hit. Maybe they get a timeout and there's some sort of a consequence. So through repetition and guidance, kids start to understand right from wrong. It doesn't mean that you're always going to make the right choice. I'm sure many of you still make bad choices on occasion. And hopefully there's a consequence for that when you do make a bad choice. And, if that happens often enough, you might change your course. We hope as parents and educators and adults that you develop a conscience. And your conscience is that little voice in your head that tells you when something doesn't feel quite right, or maybe this isn't the best decision. It's important to listen to that little voice and to kind of let that steer your decision making. It helps you to create this moral standard of what is okay and what is not okay. So that's all we're going to cover today for the 5 areas of development. You can go back and, listen again if you missed something, but make sure you complete the worksheet. You're going to be asked to list the 5 areas of development, give 2 examples of each area. So hopefully I gave you enough examples and that you learned something new today. Talk to you soon. Bye.